I want to pay particular tribute to the speeches that we've heard this afternoon from my honourable friends from both Birmingham and Bradford, who I thought spoke with particular power. But when I look back on the 12 years on which I've campaigned on this issue here in this House, I'm afraid it's the lack of progress that I have to remark, not the progress that I think we can celebrate. Of course, there's been some advances when it comes to controls at the border. There's been some advances when it comes to the matter of trade. There has been some advances when it comes to the issue of transport. But the truth is that today we are not a step closer to honouring that basic requirement set out in the UN mandates all those years ago to grant the right, not the privilege, the right of self-determination to the people of Kashmir. Now, over the last 12 years, amongst our most urgent calls have been for free movement of human rights observers and the media throughout the area of Kashmir. And my goodness, the events of the last 6 months have underlined why we were so right to call for that. The abuses that have been perpetrated with pellet guns, with rape, with chili powder, have maimed, scarred and destroyed lives, not just for this generation, but those memories of this abuse will cascade down generations to come. That will not make the solution or the arrival of peace any faster. It will make it tougher and slower. In particular, we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we learn so much about these abuses, not from the mainstream media, but from social media? I want to pay tribute to those who had the courage to post news about the atrocities so that the world and those in this House could not look away. We could see it on our phones, we could see it on our screens. The BBC has at least started to produce some coverage, but it is of no comparison to the kind of coverage that we used to see from South Africa when I was a teenager, or from Israel and Palestine week in, week out. We have to call on our media organisations to give us the benefit of transparency so that the world is forced to look at what is happening. Now, I think the moral arguments for a solution are pretty clear, and we heard them well articulated this afternoon. But my honourable friend, the member for Perry Barr, began to allude to some of the geopolitical demands for a solution too. China's new Silk Road strategy will see $4 to $6 trillion of investment poured into the business of integrating the Eurasian landmass. Indeed, yesterday in Dagenham, we celebrated the arrival of the first train direct from China. This great continent is changing. Relations between China and Pakistan are changing. If we get this right, there is a tremendous economic prize ahead of us. The principal beneficiaries of that prize could well be India and Pakistan, but not if they continue to pour money and arms and troops into the most heavily defended and dangerous border on earth. And that is why both sides now surely have an interest in a solution, and why we have a moral obligation in this House to help push that solution forward. Now, I have been part of a group of people in this House who have argued for change for the last 12 years. And I think it is time now to have some honesty and some candour about whether that political strategy is going to produce any more change, any further advance in the 12 years ahead. Because I have to say to the House this afternoon, I don't think it will. I think we now have to look in this House to other parliaments around the world, in Europe, in the developing world, in the United States, and begin to think through how can we construct an international alliance of parliamentarians to call for change. We all know about the limitations of the United Nations. It's not made a lot of progress in the last 50 or 60 years. Do we really believe it's going to make any more progress in the years ahead? Let us take direct action now as parliamentarians, not on our own, but in alliance with others who believe in the same things that we do. And let us together campaign for some basic changes that all of us want to see. The repeal of the Special Forces Act, which is in clear breach of the UN obligations that India has signed up to. A ban on pellet guns, like many honourable members have called for this afternoon. Free movement of human rights groups throughout the area of Kashmir. An investigation into the 2,200 mass graves which we know are there. And yes, finally, self-determination for the people of Kashmir. We've got to make a choice in this House about whether we stand on the sidelines of this debate as impotent bystanders, or whether we are going to be protagonists for change. just as we were in the case of South Africa, just as we were in the case of Burma. One of my constituents, Madam Deputy Speaker, put it to me like this: the people of Jammu and Kashmir seek a peaceful resolution. They want their country to become a bridge of peace and not a bone of contention between India and Pakistan. We in this House should support this motion and support that basic instinct.
Holly Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a real privilege to follow that incredibly articulate speech.